Welcome to another film called An Interview With, and in this interview I've got someone that everybody will know what he's done, but you might actually not know the person himself. But I'm quite sure that nearly every angler in this country will know the business that he's created. And that business is called Angling Direct. So I'm really happy to welcome not just a long-term member here, but someone who's obviously made a huge impact in the angling industry, Martyn Page. So Martyn, welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
So the first question I ask everybody is, what's your earliest memory of fishing?
Well, I suppose it's the first time I ever went fishing. My brother-in-law, sadly dead now, but my brother-in-law took me fishing at Helston Mill on the River Wens, and I caught a minnow.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 11.
Okay, all right. So that's your earliest days, and
Yes.
from those days, how did you become from that young lad who was catching minnows to creating what's now which is most probably the biggest angling tackle business in the country?
Well, I just found that fishing was my love, and I just wanted to fish. So I spent my school days going fishing, and just the more I fished, the more I wanted to catch big fish. Of all species, I was never sort of just one species man. So I grew up on the River Wensum, fishing for firstly minnows, gudgeon, dace, then on to chub, using fluting crust, bread flake, cheese paste, all the old type baits. Remember in those days the tackle that was available was limited. There hadn't been the revolution that happened in the 70s when we all started experimenting and introducing new ideas. So I made do with what I had, and then started playing and making my own things, and adapting, and found it was very successful. And the more success I had, the more I was inspired.
And what species did you focus on at the very beginning?
Well, it quickly became chub in the summer. In the winter, it tended to initially to be, I was going on the River Bure at Wroxham and catching some bream and roach, and then I discovered that perch were in the edges and started catching those on little live baits, and then I hooked my first pike, and pike were an inspiration to me, because that then filled my winters and still does. My winters it's pike fishing, but I've loved all fish in turn. I still adore tench, pike, obviously carp, but yeah, the more species the better.
But with your pike fishing, I mean, people might remember you've obviously even written books on pike fishing.
Yes.
So how did you start doing that? Where did that come from?
Well, it came from basically Bure at Wroxham. In the Norfolk Broads at that time, a lot of pike anglers had experienced the big Primnesium kill on the River Fern system and all the fern broads in the late 1960s, and a lot weren't lost what to do. And as young lads, we just happened to have a boat moored in a dike at Wroxham. Went out one day onto the river and we started catching pike, and they were good fish. And we had an absolutely incredible time. Interestingly, we were just naive lads. We went into a fish and tackle shop and told them all these fish we'd caught, and they didn't believe us because we were catching too many, big double figure fish. Right. So the next week we went and we got a camera and we took some pictures in. Within a few weeks, more people were coming back to Wroxham because the publicity soon sort of travelled. But then I realised with pike fishing that the fish and tackle that you bought was almost inhumane, because you had gags, people had gaffs for pike, and we quickly thought, well, this is not right. So we started using long forceps, and we used to use carpet on the bottom of the boat just to protect the fish. They're all the things that have developed into fish care of today. A few of us were actually trying to adapt, and that was going on all around the country at the same time. Other people were saying, look, let's change things. And you saw it in the carp revolution.
Yeah,
that
we
happened.
saw it here.
Yeah. And it was a time of thinking anglers that we wanted to change. We didn't want the same stuff. And at the same time, manufacturers were getting new materials. So lines were getting better, And so there was this great groundswell going on. And eventually, I thought, well, I can sell these items that I was manufacturing or I was making myself. And so with Vic Bellas, I set up a small manufacturing company. It was called Marvik, which is Martyn and Vic. And
what year would this have been then, Martyn?
that would have been around about 1980, 81.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It wasn't until 1986 I actually got into retailing. But we were quite successful with Marvik. We produced a complete pike range of more modern traces and wires and things for people to make their own trace, doing away with the old Jardine style barbaric wires and huge hooks. So everything was moving at a real pace. I mean, and other people were doing it. Kevin Nash had started making, sort of luggage, etc. The whole, there was a swell, and what arose is the era of the specimen group, where groups of people like-minded in a region got together and shared. So I joined the Broadland group with John Wilson, Steve Harper and others. And we were catching lots of very big fish for those days. Probably most famous at the time was when we fished a lake we named the Marsh for tench. And we were catching so many tench of 5 to mid-7s, which in those days were huge tench, absolutely huge. And in fact, John Wilson put a picture into the magazines of a catch of 3 7-pound tench I had, believing it was the first time it had ever been done. And that's the sort of thing we were doing. It was a great time. It was a great time of innovation, and it was exciting.
It's funny because it's exactly the same with us from the Waveney Valley Lakes days when carp fishing was in its infancy as such.
Yeah.
From the 50s and the 60s, and people talk about that still, but that was such a small, that was a gentleman's club virtually. It was nearly guys went fishing in shirts and ties and everything else. Mm-hmm. And then from the late 60s right through the 70s, when we saw the influx of everybody coming in from Waveney Valley Lakes, everybody was, like you were saying, we were making our own rods, making our own things, making our own baits. It was the most inventive time for carp fishing. It sounds like it's the same for you with the pike fishing.
I think it was all over. I mean, cane rods were replaced by solid fiberglass, and then you got the hollow glass, and you had to make them all up yourself. You couldn't buy the rods that you wanted. So it was exciting that you had to do so much, but every single advance, so my carp fishing started naturally with floating crust because that's what I was using for chub. Right. So I was catching, carp off the surface. My first 20 came off the surface, and in those days there weren't many 20-pounders around.
And you were fishing Norfolk waters?
Norfolk waters, yes, yeah.
Did you ever fish it? Because I wouldn't have known you then, but did you ever fish at Waveney Valley?
I came down a few times to Waveney Valley, yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
In fact, your dad told me off.
Nothing new there for him.
I'd gone stalking, therefore leaving the swim I had.
Dear. Okay. I think I still do that here actually, so it's something in the blood. So that's good. Now, a little birdie told me though that you had a record fish once.
Oh dear, yes. Well, I never claimed it because I would have been embarrassed, and I think my school friends would have taken the mickey out of me, and I think everyone else would. I caught a record gudgeon.
A record gudgeon?
A record gudgeon, yes.
Oh, yeah. I have heard this, so please explain more, because that's a one hell of a record to hold.
Well, yes, it is, isn't it? I was holding it like this, well, like this. Now, it is 4 ounces and 4 drams, and it was actually weighed on match scales.
Wow.
And at the time, that would have been a record. I believe the record's now 5 ounces.
Okay.
It's grown. But yes, so no, I was too embarrassed to claim that. It's not like a record carp, is it?
So when did you publish your first book?
That was in the 80s. So John Bailey and I wrote Predator Becomes a Prey, which was a combination of ourselves. I was more the pike angler, obviously, and John was he was making his name with roach and things at the time, but we just fancied writing this book. And we got a number of well-known pike anglers who were fishing different areas, like fen and drains and locks and things, so we put a book together, and it was very well received.
So how many have you written? How many books have you?
I've done 2 pike ones. I did one with Vic Bellas as well, called In Pursuit of Esox Lucius, or Pike in Pursuit of Esox Lucius. And then we did Carp, the Quest for the Queen, John Bailey and I, which again was the same format as the Predator one, Predator Becomes a Prey, which is people who were catching in certain areas using certain styles. So I wrote a lot about floating baits, and things like that. So we tapped in on some of the best experiences at the time and wrote what we think at the time was a really interesting book.
Yeah, fascinating. And so, talking earlier, you're saying you started making your own fishing tackle, and you started your own business then with Vic Bellows. So what were the main things that you were making, and where did that lead you to go next with everything?
Yeah, so we did a pike range, which was, just because pike fishing tackle needed to be improved. The bottom end range, sort of the hooks, terminal tackle needed to be better, floats. But probably the most significant thing that we developed is still in some, it actually shaped carp fishing today. That's this little fella here. This is a boilie punch. So we released the boilie punch, and the idea of that is that you can take your boilie, insert this bit into it, like so, and then chug out the bit that you've taken out and put a bit of cork in.
Okay.
What you achieved is your first balanced bait.
And what year was this, Martyn?
That was around the 80s,
okay,
give or take.
Because again, in theory, if you think about it, at Waveney Valley Lakes, I mean, the first boilie we saw, most probably Lenny Middleton brought up.
That's right.
Okay, so, and that was then used, it was side hooking. Okay, so and then obviously we know what Lenny did after that. He invented the hair rig, and it was very fortunate back then because he was working for me down at Waveney Valley Lake for about 3 years. So really, that was right coming close up behind.
That was just behind that.
Yeah.
So it was probably within a year or two of the hair rig coming out, because once that came out, it changed the way we were carp fishing, obviously.
Yeah. Well, again, from hair rigs and then making it pop up.
Yeah. So it just makes a balanced bait. I mean, you can make a pop-up bait, but nowadays, of course, you buy wafters and etc. But they weren't around in those days.
And how many of those did you sell over a period of time?
Well over 100,000 in the first 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question. And the price back then?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I cannot recall. Probably about £2.50 or something.
So you suddenly had one hell of a business.
Yes, we did. Yeah, it just on that one product, it outsold everything else that we were selling. We did do a dead bait punch as well, which was longer, so you could put a piece of foam or cork down into the dead bait.
Wow. Okay. And did that then, after doing all that, did your thinking change within the industry? Is that when the idea of angling direct came along?
Well, the idea of angling direct is sort of is a process. When you start doing something, it's amazing where it leads, the paths that you go down. So the actual sort of manufacturing side, it was good fun. But I was thinking, well, we're not making that much difference. And I went back in my mind to years before, when as a lad I'd gone in tackle shops and they'd said, oh, you can't be catching all those fish. And they didn't believe me. And I also thought, well, these tackle shops are very cliquey and they're not giving advice and customer service the way they should. And it stuck with me as a young lad. So as the years went by, I kept thinking more and more that I can make more difference owning a fishing tackle shop. And at that time, my profession was actually sort of in the accountancy world. I was sort of started advising businesses. And a partner in the firm as well, he liked the idea of us going into business. If you're going to advise a business, you ought to actually roll up your sleeves.
Run a business. It's the only way to learn, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and most accountants don't do that. They're just accountants. So we decided to get a business, and as soon as William agreed on that, I phoned up the secretary of the Roxham District Angling Club, of which I was a member, and I said, Bob, you don't think Roxham Anglings will come for sale at any time, do you? I thought that was the sort of size business we could cut our teeth with. I didn't have any hope of that, but it happened 2 weeks later. I got a phone call from the owner, and he sold the business to us in 1986. And so that was my first fishing tackle shop. The first day, the 20th of April 1986, we took £20, and I wondered what on earth I'd done.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I
Yes,
thought, oh dear.
I can relate to things like that. Yes.
But it was an okay shop, except it was mainly catering for the holidaymakers, which, that's good to do that. But they had gifts for sale in it as well, which I quickly got rid of. But it wasn't a challenge enough. We soon realised we needed something more challenging. We opened up a store just down the road at Harlesden.
Did you really?
Yeah, and we had that for a few years. Then we sold it to the manageress in the shop at the time, because it wasn't big enough, and we moved on then to join in partnership with Dave Plummer and Derek Amy's at the time, who had Norwich Angling Centre.
Yes, yes.
Eventually buying them out of it, and we bought one. We had one at North Walsham for a while, still all in Norfolk, but then John Wilson decided that because of all the filming, etc., he wanted to sell his.
Yes, I know. Yes, of course, I know about this. Yeah.
So being in the same group, he offered it to me first, in the same specimen group, and so we bought John Wilson's.
And had you changed the name then to Angling?
No.
So you had all independent names.
All independent. We were keeping it quite sort of separate. Then Tom Bolton wanted to retire, who's the match angler in the region.
He used to have a caravan, or his parents had a caravan at Wadley Valley Lakes.
Yeah. So we bought Tom's. And now I thought, well, we've got all these little stores, they weren't all little as such, but little in the concept that we had stores all over the place. When in a business sense, there ought to be one big one. You shouldn't have like 3 stores in Norwich, And that's when really the idea of a big one came about. So we condensed them into one, and the turnover went up like 30% for those ones. We let the North Walsham one go, kept the Wroxham one, we still have a Wroxham one today. And I thought, well, when we opened it, John Wilson actually hosted the opening.
Yes.
He
was very good at things like that.
Publicised on the radio. And down Aylsham Road in Norwich, there was just a massive queue of people waiting to get in. And what we were opening as the first superstore or big store, angling store in England. And it was so successful.
And what year was this?
It was still 83, I think.
So it really was
it was 80. That was 88 then.
But even in that period, it was a very quick growth period.
It was starting very fast. We were very fortunate. I managed to encourage 1 or 2 insurance companies to give me all their insurance claims for fishing tackle.
Okay.
And they did it on the grounds that we were professionals. So we suddenly had this income coming in from fulfilling anyone's insurance claim for stealing
from all over the country.
From all over the country, and so that gave us more cash flow. We were putting quite a lot of money in, spare money, and put houses on the line. But I just thought, well, if I can do it in one place, I can do it everywhere, which led to the concept of Angling Direct.
And how did that name come about?
Well, it was about the time that we were dabbling in mail order like everyone and losing money.
Right.
So there was sort of Andy Barker from Coventry. He was doing quite well, but no one was making money. We'd turnover, but you weren't making money. But the internet was coming about.
Right.
And so the word direct started appearing, for buying and direct. So we set up Angling Direct. Well, in fact, actually, I think we did Fishing Direct or something first, but I changed the name eventually because I thought Angling Direct was better. So it was basically to set up an online business and be one of the first to do a proper online business. So Angling Direct became the name because it tied up angling online and
it's
come directly to Angling Direct.
It's the household angling fishing name, really, isn't it? So from there it's grown and grown and grown. It
has, but we have I've always had this purpose behind the business, and the sole purpose is to give a better service than I got as a child and a growing angler.
It really made an impact on you, didn't it?
It did, because I think anglers, it's an angling community, and anglers need help. They want help and advice. They come to a store, not just by fishing tackle, to chat to other anglers. To actually ask about the latest things. And the hardest thing as you grow bigger and bigger is to maintain that purpose and culture that, it's all about looking after our angling community. And that's my vision and purpose behind it all.
And obviously, because I know you and you come here and you've been a member here for nearly 30 years, I think, we'll talk about that later, but obviously you've got so many shops. At what point did you've now become PLC?
So
You floated the company on the stock exchange.
yes, so that we got to a point when, if you think we had a lot of stores, we were investing all the profits in opening new stores, so there's no money. So to open up more, you actually needed more funding. There were a lot of people would go to private equity or whatever, which then dictate to you, how to grow. But I was introduced through my business contacts to someone who suggested floating the company. So we looked into it, and it seemed a sound way of doing it. We've actually maintained control. Remember the purpose I was talking about?
Yes.
If we had gone down with sort of private equity coming in, these big venture capitalists, they would have dictated money, don't care about your customer, etc. They don't all do that, but an awful lot do. When you go private, when you actually go public from a private company, you still have your control. It begins to get a little restricted in that you have to care about other shareholders, not just yourself as a shareholder. But other than that, your main purpose is to grow a business that fulfills the need of your customers. So it kept that ability to maintain our purpose and culture.
And one thing that you've become really well known for is you're doing your own huge range of fishing tackle now and products.
Yes.
And everything else. And how did that start then? What was the idea behind that?
Well, I suppose it goes back to the Marvik days. I always wanted to do own fishing tackle, but not. It's also that it's a hard business. All retail is a very hard business. If you can actually manufacture your own, you are the boss of that product, and you can actually make that product with a bigger margin, and you can sell it at a lower price, so everyone gains. So you get with an Advanta product, you actually get something which is coming out of the same Chinese factories as a bigger, more expensive brand, but you're saving a bit of money, and it enables us to make a little bit more money, so everyone wins.
And right now, how many stores does Angling Direct have, and where's it going?
Right, so we're in the mid-50s now. Open stores all the time in the UK. We have one store in Holland. We have a distribution centre in Holland.
Do you intend to expand more into Europe, do you think?
Yes, Europe is going through a situation which I think happened in England around the time we did a lot of our expansion, and that was a consolidation of a lot of retail businesses into bigger stores. It was easier because in England, a lot of people set up fishing tackle stores in the 70s when we had this great influx of carp fishing, etc. And as they came to retire, that was it. They hadn't expanded because they lived a nice little life on that business, but they couldn't expand it. And suddenly along came recessions and things got hard. And we were able to help people retire, to be fair. We were buying these stores, they were getting their retirement fund, and we were then able to convert them into this new modern way of dealing with things.
Is Europe, from my experience, again, from my other side of my business, when I was doing Japanese koi and supplying Japanese koi into all over Europe, and I had agents, a lot of the shops we were supplying, they were a different concept. They were just a big pet shop, an aquatic store, and a fishing store. Do you see that, or are you thinking of just being an independent tackle store nowadays?
We've got no plans to go into other products and become sort of a multi-range store. There are a few that do that. There's some more in Europe than there is in the UK. Obviously Fishing Republic, which is all sort of tied in with sports goods, food, clothes, etc. But no, our aim is just to keep growing the angling business, and there's plenty of time to do that.
So, after all these years of you starting, having the idea of Angling Direct, creating it, making it a PLC company, what's your position in the company now?
Well, I'm currently what we call a non-executive director. So I retired as chairman nearly 2 years ago, and so I'm on the board. I'm actually going to step off the main board at the end of our financial year, which is end of January, and become the founder president. So that's more ambassadorial, sort of.
Well,
Figure.
That's a very nice name for this. That sounds a wonderful name, better than a CEO or whatever. So that's going to give you more time to go fishing. But even all this time that you've been doing angling direct, Martyn, you've continued to fish. And I know your fishing has taken you around the world as well. So from your early days as that young lad who caught the British gudgeon record, where did it take you and where have you gone since?
You're right. I mean, my passion for fishing, in the same way as my passion for angling direct and for helping people fish, just doesn't. It's part of my DNA, I think. But we set up a holiday company. We called it Angling Direct Holidays originally, and the idea was to help people go fishing around the world and experience different things. When we listed the company, we changed the name so it wasn't associated, because it isn't part of Angling Direct. It's called Sport Quest Holidays now. But that's opened up lots of places for everyone to go. One of the places I went in the early days, when I went catfishing on the Ebro, most people have done. That was good fun. Yeah, the big, hard-fighting fish. But at the same time, I also went to Canada to have a trip sturgeon fishing, and to actually lay the groundwork for us to do sturgeon fishing trips. And I absolutely fell in love with sturgeon and sturgeon fishing. The place is absolutely, it's the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah, it's beautiful there, isn't it? Yeah, the landscape is and the countryside is unbelievable, yes.
And the fish fight like nothing I've ever experienced. They're just amazing. I mean, they're prehistoric in looking. They live incredible infant time. A lot of these fish I've caught are over 100 years old.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
They leap out of the water, and when you see a fish 8 foot plus leaping out of the water in very fast flowing water, and you know that the next minute you're going to be chasing it 2 or 3 miles down the river, it's mind blowing. So I'm just back from a few weeks ago. I came back from the last trip and I had my second fish over 500 pounds.
500 pounds. And how long is a fish like that?
That was 9 foot 8.
9 foot 8.
My longest one was 10 foot 4.
And where other places you fished around the world?
Yeah, I've fished in America a bit.
Okay.
Sort of various places in America. Fished for muskies, bass, the channel cats. Yeah. But predominantly, I got so hooked on sturgeon that rather than keep going to different places, I just go back twice a year, and I have done for the last 23 years.
Okay, well, let me put you on the spot now, because how long have you been a member here at Homersfield Lake?
I think that must be about 28 years now.
Is it really?
I think it must be about that.
You're one of my younger members then, because most of my members here have been over 10 years plus. It's great. That's what it says something, but it's a nice thing to have. So from those early days, how have you think the lake has developed? What do you think of the lake? Can't be that bad if you've been here for 28 years.
It's obviously horrible, that's why I have it.
No.
It's a lovely lake. I mean, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's. I remember the first time I saw it, and that was John Wilson and I came down and looked at it. This was when it was producing roach.
Yes.
Years ago.
Yeah.
And there was hardly any trees.
It was the only time when we bought it in 1978. I've always said to people, it's the only time you could see the lake in its entirety.
Yeah, because that was in sort of, probably soon just before you bought it.
Yeah.
I came and looked at it.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, that's barren and horrible.
Yes, yeah. I did when my dad brought me here, and we stood on the church bank, what we call the church bank, and he said, yes, I've just bought this, and I just went, why?
Yeah.
It looked like the moon.
But I mean, look at it now, it's absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
Well, 7,000 trees later that we planted, and all the work,
It's the islands, it's a good sized lake, but it's where it's broken up with various depths. You've got your shallows in the bay over there, and it's got a fantastic head of fish.
So on that scale, fishing wise, what's your biggest carp? What's your biggest catfish?
The biggest English catfish came out of here That was £99. The biggest catfish came from Libya.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
140 odd. Biggest carp out of here is 47.9. We've had several 40s, both mirror and commons.
But you also had some great roach fishing here, didn't you?
Yeah, no, that was quite a few years ago. At the time, we were using method feeder for the carp, and we were putting a big bunch of meaty method mix.
Right.
Well, we started catching the odd big roach, and I mean big roach, and that inspired me. So I started in the afternoons when the carp weren't feeding. I'd get a light rod, it was about a 1/4 to pound test curve rod, light line, and I scaled everything down basically. And I thought, well, if they're taking these big boilies, they're going to be taking small ones. So I started using mini boilies with a size 10 hook and just scattering them out in front of me, about 30 yards out. And the roach fishing was unbelievable. To the point I stopped weighing any fish that looked less than 2.5 pounds.
Which is a roach fish. Well, even today, when people catch 2.5 pound roach, they go crazy here, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, I was fishing for 2 or 3 hours at a time. This was in summer, and I was getting up to 20, 25 2-pound roach, and a fair number of frees. So I had 13 frees in the end, in about 2 years of actually specifically fishing for them just in the summer period. The biggest one on the scales, I had a tripod set up with just a wet poly bag, and I'd actually sort of wet my hands, lift it out and put it in, so I got an absolute accurate reading rather than a big sort of weigh sling or anything. And I couldn't call it 4 pounds. It was so close that I had to say, well, that's not 4 pounds, so 3.15.5 if you like, but that's my biggest roach.
Wow, yeah, well, like you say, we know now that we've had 6 4-pound plus roach that we know of. I do wonder how many of our members bring in a roach and just do that and push it back and don't really think about it.
This happens carp angling all the time. You think, well, it's just a roach on carp fishing. It happens with big tench as well, you know.
Yeah.
Sort of someone catch a big tench and they'll unhook it, put it back.
Have you had any big tench out of here?
The best I've had is, I think, 8-10.
Okay.
I've had a few 8s, not in recent years, but I understand they begin to come back.
Yes,
again.
yeah. I mean, last year we had someone had a 9-pound male at the beginning of the season.
Massive male.
It's a massive male, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've learnt from that as well. That was fantastic. So, where does Martyn Page see himself over the next few years?
Well, hopefully catching lots of fish. So no change to that.
Have you got any direction that you'd like to see Angling Direct go into?
I sort of am very passionate about the environment. So I sort of chair the environment group. But I'm just so concerned at some of the environment issues, particularly our rivers.
It's funny, yes, I mean, I saw just a post you put out, it's about the Wensum, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, how that has changed over, I mean, I haven't fished that a lot. I went there with John Wilson and looked around, but yeah, you can see the rivers locally and everybody talking about it, so that's something I know you're passionate about.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's parts where I used to catch chub, which you can now walk on. You know, where my bait was at one time I caught chub is now just solid, and the river's sort of several feet over there. It's just shrunk, and that's through abstraction of water, sort of to feed the city and all the houses. Basically, they've sort of put a pipeline upstream which took a lot of the water flow out. But it's not just that; it's the pollution's getting in, the plastic's getting in. So I think we all need to be really, really caring about the environment. And Angling Direct, it's got a big voice now. Yeah, we've got over 500,000 people signed up to my AD, and it gives us the ability to speak for anglers and try to help anglers. And one of the big things we've got to do is try and get these rivers back to where they should be. I mean, in England we have about 80% of the world's chalk streams. Wensum is one of them, and they're all in a state of mass decay. Locally we've got the Broads. It's one of the most polluted, sort of chemical polluted areas in any of the SSIs, and it should be absolutely pristine.
Pristine.
Yeah. So a lot's got to be done. it's hard for any individual to make a difference. But I think, something like Angling Direct, we can speak for anglers and say, look, we want things done, and hopefully the governing bodies and people who are contributing to the pollution will be called to account and sort of help tidy things up.
Yeah, I suppose, and another area we haven't talked about is obviously Angling Direct TV or ADTV.
Yes.
I mean, that's another side that obviously can reach hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the beauties of that is we can actually, what you get in store when you go and talk to someone, we can get across to someone who's not in store. They can watch in the evening how to fish for all the different fish. So whether a beginner or an experience, we can put across in a beautiful way what angling's all about.
And also the lucky thing is, although he's a member here and he's a friend, and and obviously he works for Angling Direct, you have most probably the top specimen angler in the country in Phil Spinks.
Yeah, Phil's a great guy, and he's a nice figurehead of the sort of things we're doing.
Yeah.
So, but it's not just Phil. I mean, Amanda, who's behind the camera here.
Yes, yeah. You've got a great team.
Yeah,
a great team. Yeah.
And what is lovely on that is that more and more women are coming into angling.
Yeah.
They're realising what such a great sport it is, not just for catching the fish, it's being out in the countryside, isn't it? I mean, just sitting here, even if you're blanking here, you can sit all day and enjoy it.
But do you think, I feel, especially with carp fishing, do you think fishing has changed in a certain way?
Yes.
I feel that carp fishing is now, we talk about two-tier everything, but I feel now that there's two tiers of carp fishing. Can you see that, or how do you think fishing has evolved over the last 50 years that we've been doing it?
I think I was very lucky. I think I was born at a time when everything was fresh and new. And although the fish weren't necessarily as big then, the boilies, for instance, have helped increase the size
baits
of
have made
carp.
a huge, with every species, really everything.
But I was lucky that I could try everything. As a kid, when parents didn't mind me getting on the bike and cycling off all day, and I had no mobile phone to say where I was. But nowadays, parents wouldn't dream of it. They'd be accused of not looking after the child properly. So things have changed. But I do feel you learn more about fishing by going through all the fish and growing up the way I did. Now everything is available. ADTV, books, other people producing things.
Yeah. Everything's on YouTube.
Everything's ready-made.
Yes, yeah.
So from a retailer perspective, yes, I can't complain about that. From a personal point of view, I think perhaps it's all got a little bit too social media orientated and too instant.
Yes.
And I urge people who are just getting a bit tired of just doing the same old thing, try different species. Yeah, go sea fishing. There's a rise in sea fishing at the moment. Not necessarily in big cod and things that you used to get, but there are more species appearing.
Mackerel, bass, taupe.
The bass are getting right up our rivers because of climate change.
Yeah.
Salt is coming up the rivers.
So it's becoming brackish. Yeah.
So there's a lot of new things, and I think anyone who's just done, let's say, carp fishing, if they're just done carping, have a change.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, that's why although historically we're a carp fishing, farming family from the 1962, I've never wanted to just say I'm a carp lake. I want to be a specimen lake.
Yeah.
So that gives you a chance, like you're saying, big catfish, big carp, big tench, big roach. People have got a choice here.
Yeah.
So that's something I've always wanted to do. So you're taking a step back, as it was, to a degree, although you're going to be still involved with Angling Direct. That's going to allow you more fishing. Where are you going? Another 28 years here?
Well, I'll stay here as long as you'll have me. As long as you don't shut me out.
No.
But no, I love it here, so I'll stay a member here. I'll keep doing sturgeon as long as my arms will take the fight. I mean, those things battle for an hour and a half or more, some of those big ones.
Okay.
I did play one for 3.5 hours once. No hope of landing that was enormous.
You didn't get in?
Oh no, it was probably £1,500 bigger. And bigger. It's massive,
wow. Okay.
Massive fish. It was a good experience.
Yeah.
But no, I'll keep doing that until physically I can't do it. But pike fishing in winter, next week, it's October, it's the start of the pike season as far as I'm concerned. Don't pike fish before because the water's too warm.
Yeah, it's not and not good for the pike, is it?
No,
That's totally not. No.
But come October, we've had a bit of rain and some winds now. The temperature's going down. I'll pike fish because that's my winter love. I keep meaning to do a little bit of winter roach fishing on the river because I found a couple of places where there are still some roach on one of the rivers. But whether I get round to it, intend to do a bit more perch fishing. I haven't done that for a while, and there's plenty of big perch to be caught. So yeah, I'll keep versatile.
Fantastic. Well, all I can say, Martyn, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to your story because it is unique. You have created an industry that has brought more people into the angling world, which you must take credit for, and you should be very, very proud of it. And just knowing you and knowing how Angling Direct has grown, I just hope people have listened to this and learnt something really, really what you've done is very, very special. So thank you very much for telling us your story.
Well, thank you. And with Angling Direct, it's not just me, it's all the colleagues at Angling Direct, all the brilliant staff who are there to serve people. It's a complete family, basically. So it's a brilliant company, as I wanted it to be, and I hope it'll always remain that way. And I hope everyone enjoys it, and I'll enjoy the fishing.
Well, thank you very much, and it's been great having you here.
That's been great.
Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.